and welcome to this Friday, October 24th, 2014 worldwide transmission of the Truth Radio Show right here on Alternate Current Radio. I am your host, Dan Badandi. Check us out on www.truthradioshow.com. We got a huge website, a lot of content. We're still working on getting a really professional one done. Just the lack of funds right now. But I do want to thank the people who have been contributing toward the show, making generous donations and everything. That's helping us pay for small little things, big things. And we're broadcasting on 2 networks right now, and plus our own channel we got. And, you know, all our social media networks are all linked to my one website, truthradioshow.com. And I urge people to join our YouTube channel, Truth Radio Show. We got a couple YouTube channels just in case one of them goes down, because they're constantly attacking us. I mean, constantly fighting with YouTube sometime, fighting with Facebook and everything else. It's just like they're constantly trying to attack us to bring us down. And sometimes it's not even them, it's trolls that just report the stuff. So, you know, it's just like, you know, they hate truth being out there. So they'll sit there and report it spam or a fake account or whatever. But whatever the case is, we got a lot of news to talk about tonight. The big headline story of the week so far is the Canadian shooting. Now, the thing is, I know people say you say this all the time, but, you know, could this be a false flag? Well, the signs are there for it, but they say it could be ISIS. Or is this an agenda to push gun control? Even though it happened in Canada, they'll use the crisis. Like in Connecticut, you know, with the Sandy Hook shooting, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, everybody else used that crisis to try to push gun control. As Robert Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And exactly what they do is they utilize a crisis to put fear into people so they could push whatever they want to push. Well, we've got a lot of news to cover. We've got to get into the technocracy control grid news. We've got a lot of weird stuff, man. Scientists working on zapping bad memories. We got to get into that later. Then we're going to dive first into this, I call it the eugenics news, because it's exactly what it is. Forced inoculations, swine flu, the swine flu, that's past, but Ebola, which I think is the same thing, because every time I think of Ebola, I think of the swine flu. Not because of the same virus, but the same tactics they're using. Fear-mongering and everything else, and we know the H1N1 was just nothing more than a beta test, just to push martial law, just to push emergency acts so they could force inoculate and everything else. We got a video on our YouTube channel. It's Ebola virus to bring in martial law and forced inoculations to America. And so far, we've been right. And I made this video the very second of a peep of the Ebola virus, well before I even left West Africa. Well before, when the very first time we got a peep of it, I came out on a video report to say, hey, it's going to come here to America. They're going to use this to push martial law and force inoculations. And how true have those words been? Because Connecticut, it's already in a state of emergency. And the state of emergency is martial law. It's different names for it. They call it lockdown, state emergencies, other names, and once in a while they'll call martial law, but it's all generally martial law. And we've been right on that. And, you know, Russia, we talked about last week, was developing 3 vaccines for the Ebola. And the CDC's been calling for a vaccine. So far, we've been right on. You know, right on the target. Not that we bragging about this, because I hope to God I'm wrong. I hope all this is just a big mishap. I pray to God it is, because we don't want to be right about this stuff. And it's not the thing is we're right, because we know the minds of these people. And the thing is, the Ebola was created, it's copyrighted, it's all patented by our United States government. So that right there should put a red flag in your head. It was created as a bioweapon. Plain and simple. It was created to use as a bioweapon. That's why we own the patent, the copyright, and everything else. And if that doesn't put a red flag in your head, folks, I don't know what will. And, you know, say they utilize these vaccines, the viruses, to push vaccines, to push martial law. And we talked about last week how Obama was sending troops over to Liberia to fight the Ebola. Why would you need armed forces to fight the Ebola? Was the Ebola virus come out and mutate into these genetic organisms, and they have weapons and they're taking over towns and all that? So we need to send armed military to go fight them? But I mean, it's, again, never let a good crisis go to waste. Robert Emanuel says all the time, and they utilize that constantly. Every time there's some kind of a crisis, and it couldn't be, I mean, it could be very well, just like the shooting there, it could have been just some maniac, but they'll utilize that for their advantage. And they love it because they don't have to spend the money and operation time staging a false flag. So they love it when some wacko just goes out shooting people. But it could have been linked to ISIS too. But we're going to find out later. We got to dive into this news here. We got school inoculates third grader and vaccine pilot program without parental permission, reports McAllister on Infowars.com. A mother in Meridian, Idaho, is speaking out after a school nurse administered a flu vaccine to her 8-year-old child without her permission. The West Ada School District, which is running a flu vaccination pilot program, allegedly vaccinated the third grader by mistake, according to the school's administrators. And a child's mother, Letitia Huff, says the misstep could have been detrimental to her young son's health. And at first, I was very upset, she told KTVB. Although the district requires parents to sign a consent form beforehand, school administrators claim that Huff's son was confused with the absent student with the first name. So they confused the even still, like, why would they do that without a parental consent? So what were they going to do, vaccinate the other kid without consent? And, you know, and they're doing this all over the place. They're trying to push the inoculations. Last year it was horrible. They were inoculating kids, and I forgot the school. I try to remember the story. I'll throw it up on the screen if I remember. The kids were being inoculated, and one little girl went to run away, and the sheriff stopped her, or the school security, whatever it was, and the parents were notified of nothing. They were administering flu shots in the gymnasium without the parental consent or knowledge of it. That was horrible. And this stuff goes on all over the place. But the reason why you don't hear it on the mainstream media because they're corporate sponsors, Big Pharma, to keep this stuff hushed. But thanks to Infowars.com and other alternative media, we are able to come out with these stories and tell you the truth. And you got a study links soda to premature or aging here. Premature. I'm sorry, yeah. I think the soda's getting to me. I don't drink it much. I just once in a while drink a little bit, but I try to drink they call it Mexican Coke. It's Mexican Coke products. And it's funny, too, because when I was in Texas, long story short here, when I was in Texas, I was ordering a burrito from this Mexican place, an authentic Mexican place, and they asked me if I wanted a soda. I said, well, I don't drink it because, the high fructose corn syrup or the aspartame. Oh, no, we don't have that. And the guy from Mexico, he said it's against the law in Mexico. The Mexican customs won't allow high fructose corn syrup or aspartame into the country because it's flat out poison. That's why Coca-Cola has to make products without high fructose corn syrup. They use natural cane sugar and without aspartame. And they use some other kind of sweetener, natural sweeteners. So there you go. I mean, if Mexico's outlawing the stuff, why are we drinking it? Now it's linked to premature aging, disease, early death. And CBS San Francisco reports this. A new study looked at whether America's thirst for soda speeds up how the body's cells age. And researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, use a sample of 5,300 healthy adults. Dr. Appel worked on a study for 5 years, and we think we can get away with drinking lots of soda as long as we are not gaining weight. But this suggests that there is an invisible pathway that leads to accelerated age, and regardless of weight, says Dr. Appel. And Appel's team discovered that in people who drink more sugar-sweetened beverages, the ends of their chromosomes, known as telomeres, were shorter. So basically, it's causing premature death, and it's taking long. Easy terminology for that. It's taking years off your life. And it's mainly from the high fructose corn syrup, because predominantly in America, the sodas are made of high fructose corn syrup and all that other garbage like aspartame. And lead developer of HPV vaccines comes clean, warns parents and young girls it's all a giant deadly scam. And we've been telling you that for years. Infowars has been telling you that for eons. Daily Sheeple reports this. And Dr. Diane Hopper was a leading expert responsible for the Phase 2 and Phase 3 safety of effectiveness studies, which secured the approval of human papillomavirus, HPV is known, vaccines Gardasil and Cervarix. Dr. Hopper also authored many of the published scholar papers about the vaccines. She is now the latest in a long string of experts who are pressing the red alert button on the devastating consequences of the irrelevancy of these vaccines. And Dr. Hopper made her surprising confession with the 4th International Conference of Vaccination, which took place in Reston, Virginia. Her international speech here was originally intended to promote the benefits of the vaccines, took a 180-degree turn when she chose instead to come clean her consciences about the deadly vaccines so she could sleep at night. quote unquote. She quoted that. And the whole study's in the article here. And I mean, it's horrible. And we've been telling people for years. I mean, there's a little chart there. If you want to go to the chart on the screen. But people, again, you're going to see this over the weekend live. I mean, I'm sorry, you listen to it live. You're going to see this over the weekend on the video report. That's going to be on our YouTube channel. So when I tell people on the air, because we're live on the air right now, I tell people, hey, well, we have these articles pop up and all that, and it's like, well, look on the screen. People say, how could I look on the screen while listening to it? Well, you could do that by going to our YouTube channel, and Saturday night, Sunday is when we post the video of the show, the video broadcast. So I'm putting up on the screen now, it's a little chart here. It says warning HPV-4, Gardasil and HPV-2 Cervarix, adverse reactions and deaths as reported to the vaccine adverse event reporting system. And people that are going to be watching this, you can see the chart. But, I mean, it's staggering because they're giving this to males, too. And it's reported as a category for males and females and gender unknown. I don't know why they put that, because some people don't like to put that gender. But deaths, I mean, it's caused 8 deaths. I think this is just up to November 13th, of 2012. But 8 male deaths, 99 female deaths, 14 other gender deaths. So you got over 100 deaths right there, 121 total. And people that did not recover is staggering. 5,500 people did not recover from this shot. 124 male, 52 females, 53 unknown, and 5,529 people that still did not recover since November 13th of 2012. They list the emergency room visits and everything else, hospitalization. I mean, it's staggering. Tens of thousands of people here from the HPV vaccine. And I warned my wife at the time when I was married. I told her, she goes, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, and because me and her mother were trying to tell us about this, so she gets the first shot. Her hair starts rapidly falling out within a few days, and she scared the hell out of her. We told her it's going to cause cervical cancer, massive hair loss, and everything else. She thought we were lying. So, of course, she didn't go back to go get the second shot, because sometimes some people got to learn the hard way. And she exactly learned that. And these shots are deadly, folks. They really are. And more babies test positive for tuberculosis. KRGV reports this again. More babies have tested positive for tuberculosis after a mass exposure in a Texas hospital. A hospital nursing employee confirmed to have TB on the job in El Paso left more than 150 babies possibly exposed. 11 infants are confirmed to have the tuberculosis known as TB. The infected worker at the hospital reported TB symptoms in July but was allowed to continue with work for weeks. And a federal report showed that an employee told the medical professionals she coughed up blood at a health screening. Authorities said soon after more tests should have been conducted and to confirm and the disease had become contagious. But the hospital guidelines didn't mandate further testing. Of course not. So you got how many kids? Over 850 babies possibly exposed to this. But, let's keep that quiet. And why isn't the mainstream media reporting that? Unbelievable. And you got feds, blacks suffer most from fluoridated anyway. And the New American reports this. The federal government has known for 5 decades that blacks were even more susceptible than whites for serious damage from fluoride added to the water supplies. But it urged local governments to fluoridate the population anyway, according to the newly released documents, in addition to knowing inflicting major dental problems known as fluorosis on whites and especially blacks due to the controversial forced mass medication scheme. Federal health officials never have even bothered to inform blacks about the risk, despite the mounting scientific evidence of harm and the ethical concerns surrounding involuntary medical treatment. Authorities across the United States continue fluoridating public water supplies. And the rest of the article goes on to talk about all this, and it's funny too. It's not even funny, it's disgusting. Fluoride, I don't know why this works. I don't know if it's something in the DNA of the African Americans, but not just fluoride, but vaccinations and all this other stuff affect the black people more and more hazardous than white people. It's probably something in the chromosome. I'm not a biologist here, so I just know the basics. I don't know anything about the stuff, but it's not just the fluoride. We have reports about vaccines affecting black people even more too. So this is definitely an attack on the black American Africans, especially the black American Africans. And look what they're doing in Africa now. The Ebola all ties into this. The Ebola affects black people even more than white. I don't know why. I'm not saying that white people are better, so don't misconstrue my words. Some trolls out there. It's just like, it's just chromosomes a little bit different. I don't know why or how, whatever. I'm not a biologist, but it's basically these eugenicists developed this stuff to kill off the third world countries and all the African people because they think they're inferior. We think we think personally they're equal. They are. We're all equal. We all bleed red, but the elite think the black people folks are nothing but slaves still and should be abolished. And that's why, great people like us stand up for the blacks because they're just as good as we are. There's no difference. It's just color of skin. It's just because of the atmospheric conditions that's why they have darker skin. Just like the Chinese and everything else, it's, the slants of the eyes and all that, it's because their environment. And it's not evolution, okay? We don't evolve. It's just the humans adapt to their environment and the country and all that because it's different atmospheric pressures and all that. So that's why they have black skins because the sun being hot all the time or, whatever's going on in the atmospheric condition. That's how we have different colors and different races and all that. And, it's perfectly understandable. But, the elite love to target black folks. That's why they push abortions. Most abortions are on black people. They push it all in New York and everything else. It's black genocide. Alex Jones had a guy on, he was a former Black Panthers guy, I think he's a reverend now or something, exposing how they're using black genocide. They're promoting all the stuff to get rid of blacks. It's horrible, it really is. And I think the elite, they're the ones who are the cockroaches of the planet. They're the ones who should be exterminated. But they're exterminating us, all of us. It's just horrible what's going on, really is. But we do got to roll to a break. We're supposed to cover the rest of the stuff. But hopefully we can get through it all. And we're going to get into the Canadian shooting. Is it a false flag or is it ISIS or both? You decide. But anyway, we'll be right back. We're back on the Truth Radio Show on October 24th, 2014 edition. It's rolling. I think it's the 6th or 7th episode. It's going by fast, really is. You start the show, next thing it's a month, now it's going on 2 months. So, a lot of good success here on Alternate Current Radio. We're probably going to expand to 2 hours pretty soon. Probably next week I'm going to try to push for it because I wanted to cover all of the Ebola stuff. I still got the technocracy stuff and the Canadian shooting and just time flies by so fast. And so let me, before we get into that, we have to get through this. Yeah, the prescription drugs now a factor in high percentage of fatal car crashes than alcohol and marijuana, reports Mercola. And prescription drugs, marijuana, and multiple drug combinations are frequently found in the blood of drivers involved in the fatal car crashes on U.S. roads, according to a new study in Public Health Records. And drivers today are more likely to test positive for drugs than drivers 20 years ago, and drug drivers are now likely to be older than 50. But, you're seeing all over the place. It's like prescriptions are nothing more than legalizing being a druggie. And I'm not saying that people take prescriptions as druggies purposely, but they are because they don't. It's a weird situation. It's not saying that they're purposely doing drugs, whatever. It's getting prescriptions just nothing more than a legal way of saying, hey, I could take a legal narcotic. And not that most people do that purposely. No, I'm not saying that because they need it for pain, but they should not be operating motor vehicles. But prescription drugs, a huge factor in the high percentage of fatal car crashes. And Mercola reports this. Mercola is a big health advocate. They report tons of news about this, like naturalnews.com, same thing. And people should avoid driving anything if you're on prescribed medications. It's just staggering how many people are dying from car crashes and everything else. And the thing is, all these mass shooters too. All of them. We're going to get to later. I don't know. And I guarantee it's going to be somehow linked that the shooter was doped up on some psychotropic drug or something. But all these shooters, all these deadly accidents and all that, all caused by prescription drugs. And got birth control pills threaten fish population, study warns. And the Canadian Press reports this. The lead researcher of the new study is calling for improvements to some of Canadians' wastewater treatment facilities after finding that introducing the birth control pill was waterways created a chain reaction in the lake's ecosystem that nearly wiped out a freshwater fish. And this study, which was being published in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society on Monday, found that introducing small amounts of estrogen into a lake. I don't. What are they doing pouring this stuff into a lake anyway? But anyway, introducing small amounts of estrogen into a lake led to the near extinction of a fathead minnow because it interfered with the fish's ability to reproduce. Why would you pour? That's what people don't even see. They say, oh, it's just killing the fish. But you don't see that? Why are they pouring that stuff into a lake? You know what I mean? And researcher Karen Kidd of the University of New Brunswick said the study has been going on since the late 1990s. So they're telling you right there, folks, we've been pouring estrogen into the water. Telling you that, and we've been doing a study. So how many people drink that water, go fishing and eat the fish and all that since the 1990s? This is the stuff that mainstream media, most media don't even point into. We get into the depth of the report. The report says birth control pills threaten fish population, study once. But yeah, so whatever. But the diabolical thing is, since the 1990s, they've been pouring estrogen into the damn water. So how many Canadians ingested this estrogen? And no wonder why people are having a hard time reproducing. I mean, you got these Cialis commercials, all these commercials to get you an erection, to help you get pregnant. Wonder why? Because they're pouring the stuff into the water. Just like GlaxoSmithKline were pouring liters of, I think it was polio, into the Belgian drinking waters. We covered that a couple of weeks ago. Why doesn't anyone already see this stuff? It's like, oh, we're doing a test, but we're openly doing it on animals and human beings because humans are eating those fishes. They're drinking that water. They're swimming in it. It's all been through the skin. So, we're testing the people in the fishes with estrogen does. Without their consent. Unbelievable. And you got a British company. I got to move on because this is ridiculous. It really is. And British companies sell zombie-proof log cabins. Rachel Jones from the Telegraph reports this. In the prospect of a zombie apocalypse weighs heavy on your mind, British firm Tiger Log Cabins have just the product. And the firm are advertising the world's first zombie-proof log cabin designed to withstand the bloodiest of zombie attacks. And they're referring to is basically an Ebola breakout or something like that. Or people really believe a legit zombie attack, which half the people under these plagues and all that, they're like zombies, they're like Walking Dead. Not saying that the dead people are near the living dead, but you're seeing the fear-mongering pumping up here. You're seeing it happen. And you got a 17-year-old Texas kindergartner. 17 Texas kindergartner. 17-year-old Texas kindergartner. The thing is, when I read the articles, I get so hyped up, and I don't know, my mind just skips over these words and all that, and it just puts all the sentence together. I'm trying to work on that. But 17-year-old kindergartner. I hope he's not, whoever's not 17 years old in kindergarten. That's ridiculous. And we retract that, okay? National Report reports that 17 Texas kindergartners contract Ebola after exposure to Liberian foreign exchange student. In breaking news, the unsung wing of a retirement community in Waltham, Texas, was transformed into a makeshift Ebola ward earlier this morning after 17 kindergarten students fell violently ill and tested positive for the Ebola virus. It is believed that the children were exposed to the deadly disease after sharing classrooms with the Liberian foreign exchange student. And the article goes on to talk about this. We're going to move on. 17, and why isn't the mainstream media talking about this? They pump up the fear of everything else, but they won't talk about that. And you got Obama's. Now we got to move on because I apologize, folks. That is important. 17 Texas kindergartners. But, nobody's talking about that. 17 kids. Now, I'm sure it includes the parents, because the parents hug and kiss them and everything else, and the siblings. So you're looking at a huge breakout in Texas. Not to mention the guy in Dallas and other people that knew him are contracting the disease. So it's starting off in Texas. That's where they're starting it, because it's coming up from. That's why Homeland Security, and it all ties in together. They're opening the borders up to flood all the South Americans in. And how weird is like the Batman cartoon, the comic book. Back in the 90s, they came out with this comic book series called Contagion. And anybody reads comic books, and the Batman one, the Ebola virus was brought over to South America in Middle America, from somebody in West Africa. And they moved it up into the United States through the southern borders, just like it's happening now. How coincidental. We call that predictive programming. That's by the Illuminati rubbing it in your face. Hey, this is what we're going to do. They got playing cards to say, hey, we're going to put a plague on you too. And I know this stuff sounds far-fetched, and I don't blame you if you don't believe in it, but it's there. It's like a spade is a spade and an apple is an apple. It's there. They told us back in the 90s, and how coincidental. It must be a giant coincidence then if this is not planned. That's why it's called predictive programming. But we don't have time to get into that. We got Obama's Ebola czar, which he appointed a czar now for the Ebola, thinks there's too many people in Africa. And there you go, what we've been talking about. Paul Joseph Watson. President Barack Obama's new Ebola czar, Ron Klain, is the enthusiastic advocate of population control who thinks there are too many people in Africa. Well, there you go. He just opened the whole plot right out. Opened his briefcase to say, hey, this is what we're doing. And I told you that. We've been telling you that. They want to depopulate the third world countries. Then this guy's openly admitted it because in the military, they even have MOSs in the military on population control. They have classes on population control. So people say, oh, you are world depopulation. Yeah, you're conspiracy theorists. They have classes for this in the military and in some colleges. Population control. John P. Holdren, Obama's science czar, wrote a book called Eco Science, and it talks about population control. Bill Gates, how we're going to reduce the world's population and the carbon footprint down to zero by coming up with new vaccines. That was a 2010 TED conference meeting. So no, it's not a conspiracy, you moron. Why don't you try waking up to reality instead of calling people conspiracy theorists? Because I know I'm going to get called that because of that. But you know what? The writing's on the wall. He's openly stating, hey, it was too many people. So we put the virus over there. That's exactly what happened. Because they own the copyright, they own a patent on the damn Ebola. And it's used as a bioweapon to depopulate the planet. Agenda 21, the same thing with the whole biodiversity program in the United Nations. And it's all part of the same program for world depopulation. The globalists all the time call for world depopulation. And why do you think these plagues are breaking out? Because it's a global depopulation program. They want 500 million people, that's it, on this planet. That means 7.5 billion people are going to die, according to them. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but they're going to get pretty damn close to it, unless people wake up. And Klain's role in overseeing the United States response to the virus that has killed thousands of Africans and threatens to infect up to 10,000 people a week by December 1st is somewhat discerning here, given his views on the overpopulation. So it's like, yeah, we're using this for depopulation. Exactly what he's saying. It's black and white right there. You got scientists. Ebola can spread by air in cold weather because people say, oh, we got the winter coming. It's gonna kill the virus, and we already proved how it can go airborne because it did in a lab back in the 1980s, in the late 80s. It went airborne. They contained it, though. There was an experiment to see if it can, and it did. It mutated, went airborne. Now, people say, oh, because of the cold, it will kill the virus. No. Scientists are saying Ebola could spread by the air, go airborne in the cold weather. And this is from Kit Daniels. There's a big report he did on this. 3 pages, got graphs and everything else, and it's pretty cool. But, go to Infowars.com. Kit Daniels, scientists, Ebola can spread by air in cold weather. It's got all the statements, how, all the studies and everything. But he says Ebola can spread by air and cold, dry weather common to the United States, but not West Africa, presenting a possible serious threat to the public, according to 2 studies by U.S. Army scientists. And after successful exposing monkeys to airborne Ebola, which caused a rapid fatal disease in 4 to 5 days, scientists with U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Disease concluded Ebola can spread through the air, but likely has in equatorial Africa because the region is too warm, with temperatures rarely dropping below 65 degrees. And they said, we demonstrated aerosol transmission of Ebola virus at a lower temperature and humidity than normal present in sub-Saharan Africa. And the 1995 studies entitled Lethal Experimental Infections of Rhesus Monkeys by aerosols of Ebola virus. And I apologize, folks. I have a hard time pronouncing medical terminology. It's like alien stuff. And, just to try to spit it out. I mean, it's so that's why in the same mainstream media, you don't get the perfect speaking person here. It's the message, not the messenger. It's just, this is disgusting. And, and when you read these articles, they openly state what they're doing and they're going to do, but it's like the headlines and all that. And that's why InfoWars and stuff and myself here, we point out those little infractions there. And you got to read that article, great article. And the sake of time, I'm going to move on. Madsen, Ebola epidemic linked to CIA. And we told you that, the government created a virus. It's a bioweapon used by our government, known as the CIA here. Current number of Infowars.com reports investigative journalist and former NSA contractor Wayne Madsen told Press TV on Monday that the latest Ebola outbreak in Africa may be a resurfacing of an earlier infection linked to the CIA. And we've seen in 1976 when the U.S. was violating a Senate law that forbid the U.S. from engaging in an Angolan civil war, and we saw Zaire, being used for bait and by the CIA. And basically what they're saying is like they used the Ebola before. They used viruses and everything else, and they were forbidden by the government, but they did it anyway. And because the CIA does what the hell they want. In 1980, we saw the outbreak of HIV in Zaire in Angola, where the CIA was operating. This guy came out to say, hey, the CIA is one instituting these biological weapons. Just like they were told the Syrian rebels to use the gas on the people, that killed over 3,000 people, to blame Assad. When the Syrian rebels are Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda is the Syrian rebels. But yet, John McCain wants to fund these people and give them weapons, which they're doing anyway. Unbelievable. Which is going to go right to ISIS. I mean, that's a whole story altogether. And he says, I think what we need to see is an investigation of how intense the CIA biological warfare program was in Zaire and Angola between 1976 and 1980, and what has hit the Sierra Leone and other countries is the Zaire strain of Ebola. So he's saying right there, that's the CIA. And because again, world depopulation, Obama saw Africa has too much population, so they're openly saying, hey, yeah, we're killing off the third world countries. Openly saying it. Bill Gates says it all the time, everybody else. And you got hashtag Stop Ebola strike, national strike to force Obama to block West African flights. And as we talked about last week, how the CDC director said blocking flights would make things worse. I don't know how he thinks of that, but I think stopping incoming flights would, pretty much keep it away from us. But then again, they're letting the illegal immigrants that are infected through the southern borders. So, I mean, we're screwed anyway, to tell you the truth, unless, they don't tell you the truth, High doses of vitamin C fights the Ebola. There's several ways of fighting the Ebola naturally without the vaccine. And Infowars.com's got great articles on that to talk about the natural ways of fighting Ebola. And Infowars.com is calling for a general strike across the United States in response to the federal government's botched response to the Ebola outbreak and the Obama administration's refusal to block flights coming in from West Africa. So Infowars is calling to stop Ebola strike. We got to do that. Well, they should have been done right away, but, the idiots in the CDC think they know better. And White House on Ebola SARS, we were looking for an Ebola expert. And this is where we talked about the Ebola SARS that just said that we want to, to extinguish the African population, basically we were saying. And after CNN reporter asked White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest what experience Ebola SARS Ron Klain has with Ebola. Ernest said the White House wasn't looking for an expert on Ebola. So they put this moron in there to say, a SARS means he's an expert. He's the leading authority. So, they appoint this guy that doesn't know about it, but that says, you know what? There's too many people in Africa anyway. No big deal. Too many people in Africa, and just let them die off, and we'll just worry about here. No, how about we worry about it because you're the ones that engineer. You people should be arrested for this. You people should be brought up with crimes against humanity on a world scale. Scum in the CIA and these top federal officials. They should be arrested, plain and simple. The CIA should be shut down, abolished, and all these scum be arrested. But anyway, we do got to go to a break. When we get back, the Canadians shooting false flag or ISIS, or both. But anyway, we'll be right back on the Truth Radio Show on AlternateCurrentRadio.com. And welcome back to the Truth Radio Show in our final segment. The hour goes by so fast, we really need to expand to more. But anyway, we didn't get to half of the news we wanted to. We still got more on the bowl, but we got to move on. Before we move on, we got a quote of the week, and it's by Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, one of the best presidents we ever had, one of the best patriots. And he states, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Again, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for good people of good conscience to remain silent. And that's all it needs to gain a foothold. And like Edmund Burke says, the only thing evil needs to succeed is for good men to do nothing. Exactly what they're saying. The Founding Fathers been telling us from day one, hey, good people need to stand up. Oh, what are you going to do? No, we don't need people like that because you're just as guilty as the criminals. Plain and simple. Because you know what's going on. Oh, what are you going to do? Put my head in the sand. I'm going to do that. You know what? You need to get off your asses and do something. And I'm not saying going out shooting things or whatever. No, I'm saying get off your ass and do something. Write blogs, pass information, because information destroys, the truth destroys years and years of the world. 5 minutes of the truth, of you speaking 5 minutes of truth, destroys years and billions of dollars of the elite's work. 5 minutes of truth could bring 10 years of tyranny down. And if you don't think so, I'm living proof of that. I mean, I'm not bragging about myself, but I did that from the smallest town, from the smallest state in the whole country. I disrupted a big national incident, the Boston bombing. And I brought the truth out there, me and Alex Jones. And so don't say, and that was only less, it was a couple minutes, not even a minute. And that rocked the whole world. Now they're aware of false flags. So don't say, oh, well, what are you going to do? Get off your ass. That's what you're going to do and do something. But we do got to move on, time constraints here. And before we get to the Canadian shooting, I just want to go over this technocracy news quick. Scientists working on zapping bad memories. CBS Miami reports it sounds like science fiction. The idea that bad memories could be erased with a flash of a light. And it's like the movie MIB, with the flash of lights. That's what it sounds like to me. Well, the future is here. At least for mice. Researchers at the University of California Davis Center for Neuroscience are learning how to use lasers to erase specific memories in mice, something that could possibly benefit humans one day. So yeah, mind control. I'm sure they're doing this. I mean, they erase people's government experience, the CIA and all that. They know how to erase people's memories. I mean, it's nothing new. Well, I mean, the public's learning about this through the science and all that in the universities, but they've been doing this for a while. And Facebook to DEA. Hey, no setting up fake Facebook accounts. This is Tech Dirt report. Earlier this month, we wrote about the DEA's, the Drug Enforcement Agency's, decision to set up fake profiles of a woman who's in charge of a case related to drug dealing. And the DEA argued that the woman's consent to use evidence from her seized cell phone in the investigation included allowing them to, without telling her, set up a Facebook profile in her name, posting pictures of hers and other children from the phone, and a friend of people the woman knew in her real life, and in the effort to get more evidence in the drug case. After the story got attention, thanks to BuzzFeed article, the Department of Justice said it will review the practice of creating such fake Facebook profiles, implying this isn't the only one. And that's exactly because they've been doing it for a while. And Facebook says stop. Stop setting up fake accounts. But, let's just shift gears. We got a lot more, but let's just shift gears. But before that, FBI wants Congress to mandate backdoors and detect devices to facilitate surveillance programs. We're going to get into that next week. We're going to talk about that specifically on this whole technocracy thing, because we do got to move on. We got talk about this Canadian shooting. And we need more time, really do. We need more time, and it's just so much stuff to get out in one, a week's headline news in 1 hour. I mean, it's impossible. But we try to get out the most important, juicy stories. And this is a lot of ISIS news here and the Canadian shooting, which all ties them together. Now, the other day, there was a shooting in Canada. Soldier dead in Parliament attack, reports ABC News. A Canadian soldier was killed this morning, and this is October 22nd, was killed this morning in shooting that forced police to lock down Parliament and hustle the country's prime minister to a safe location. And police are searching for two suspects after one dealt with, according to the spokesman for Ottawa Police. Officials later said the male suspect was killed. And the gunfire prompted security force to take Prime Minister Stephen Harper to a safe place, not at a Parliament Hill. His spokesman said Harper's usual office is in the buildings near the shooting site. But anyway, this happened here, and it's unfortunate, it really is. But the question is, could this be a false flag? Because Infowars.com is raising a good concern about this, saying that Canadian police caught staging false flag. And Infowars reporter Joe Biggs covers, which we had him on our show. We'll probably get him back on this show here on Alternate Current Radio when we move to the 2-hour slot. Infowars reporter Joe Biggs covers the shooting at Parliament Hill in Ottawa, Canada, and how Canadian police have been caught staging false flags in the past during the Toronto's G20 when undercover police engage in purposeful provocation. They're provocateurs, the police dressing up as protesters and causing violence just to get justification for police to use force. And he also breaks down the police were caught laughing on film during what seemed to be a tense situation, as well as how security was not armed in the building that the shooter entered. Of course not. All these shootings happen, of course, there's no armed guards in the building or on the grounds, of course. Because the shooters would never go into a place with guns. And these idiots out there have a nerve to say, oh, this is why we need gun control. Like a bunch of doofuses and dorks and retards. And excuse the phrase retard, but anyway, these people take the cake for that. They really don't. And I'm not talking about God bless those mental kids and all that. They shouldn't even be called retards, but I hate that word to even use that. But these gun advocates they should change the dictionary, the word retard in the dictionary to gun control advocates. Gun control advocates is a new meaning for the word retard. Because how the hell could you say, oh, this is why we need gun control, when all these gun shootings, all these mass shootings take place in places with no armed security? But yeah, we need gun control, right, idiots? What a bunch of morons. And that's why you guys fail over and over and over again, especially here in Rhode Island. You fail constantly, miserably, because you people can't understand how guns save lives. Because you don't want to understand. You want the public to disarm, and your people, the leaders at the top telling you the guns are bad, they want people to disarm because they want tyranny. Then they look through history. Adolf Hitler, Fidel Castro, Mao, Stalin, all these people, all right, instituted gun control. And they would have never killed hundreds of millions of people. And there's idiots out there. This is what you seem to forget. You seem to forget history. Edmund Burke says those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it and use those people. Hundreds of millions of people, the Jews and everything, were all killed. How? Because prior to all these mass genocides, they took the guns away. Executive orders, they staged false flags attacks to say, oh, well, we need your guns. Of course, the citizens, all right, here you go. Keep us safe, Mr. Government. And all of a sudden went from a democracy to a dictatorship, and that dictatorship cost the lives of millions and hundreds of millions of people. So, yeah, gun control works, you morons. I mean, why don't you read history? Go to school and read history, okay? Get educated in history. How gun control killed hundreds of millions of people. But, you take one bad case of a guy shooting up a parliament building. Oh, this is why we need gun control. When there was no armed security. The logic and sensibility of you morons out there, and I don't usually call people names, but these gun control advocates take the cake of the word retard. Plain and simple. And like I said before, if you want political correctness, you're not going to get it here. I tell it how it is. And the gun control advocates are nothing but a bunch of brain-dead moron retards. Plain and simple. How the hell could you say gun control works when all these mass shootings are taking place in gun-free zones, retards? It just makes me mad. And I know I was supposed to cover the ISIS stuff, and just, it's just so idiotic that these people think this way. What puts that mindset in them? There must be some mind control or something, because I don't know how a human that, I'm not saying these people are not intelligent, because some of them do have intelligent backgrounds, but why can't they use these intelligence in this criteria here? How the hell does gun control work? But they're going to call for it. They're going to call after this, even though they're stating it was the Parliament building had no armed security. But these gun control advocates is going to filter here in America. Oh, this is why we need gun control, because a maniac stormed the Parliament building and we need to take the guns from the public. And they're going to do this in Canada probably too, but without realizing what the hell they're saying. Hey, why don't you stop for a minute? Stop and think what you just stated. Your gun control advocates. This is why we need gun control. You idiots, okay? That would have never happened if it was armed security there. those soldiers would have been alive today. And regardless where we have different views on Sandy Hook, okay, if it was 100% legit, those kids would be alive today if there was armed security there. Reason why Adam Lanza chose one of the only gun-free zones. Yeah, I think it was 6 schools he passed that had armed security, whatever the case was. The movie theater shooting in Colorado. The only gun-free zone movie theater. And when the University of Arizona had that, I don't know, it's just like, oh man, it's so mind-boggling, it really is. And like just bringing up all these things, and I don't know how these idiots could think that gun control works. Just blows my mind away, and just say, oh man, and I deal with these people constantly. I confront them at the State House in Rhode Island here, and they get. And the thing is, when you bring up stats and you're talking civilized, this anger, this beast comes out of them, that they start hollering, whatever, and just calling you names and everything else. And when it has nothing to do with, how the hell does gun control take guns out of the hands of criminals? It doesn't. I asked that so many times. Not one of these gun control advocates could answer that. Not one. And I would love to have debate a top gun control advocate on my show. I would love to debate. It would be civilized, but I would love to debate these morons. And I know I'm not being civilized now, but I don't care, because these people take the cake, the definition of the word retard, plain and simple. And it really, it's... But, you got these Canadian police who were doing this. During that G20, they were using purposeful provocation, like they're provoking violence in the G20 meeting. And who's to say this didn't happen here? But, this very well could be a staged false flag, and could it be a part of ISIS too? And you got drivers subject to mandatory vehicle searches following the Canadian shooting. Mikhail Fallon of Infowars reports Canadian law enforcement groups are currently searching vehicles attempting to enter Quebec in the wake of Wednesday's morning's shooting in downtown Ottawa that left one soldier dead. And the CBS News link, you can see it right on the article, right on those of you that watch the video feed of this. And it's got pictures. Like this, discussing the whole roadblock, shut down. It's, unwarrantedly searching people's vehicles. And I don't know how the laws are in Canada, but I'm sure, this happens all the time in the United States. And in the United States, that's a Fourth Amendment violation. Period. So, I'll argue with anybody with that all day long. That's definitely a Fourth Amendment violation. And, this shooting, could it be linked to ISIS, or could it be a false flag? And speaking of ISIS, we do got to move on before the end of the show, and I apologize about the rant and the choice of words I was talking about, but you know what? These gun control advocates, they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They contradict their own selves. They put their own foot in the mouth, like one of the bills in Rhode Island. They're going to impose a 10% surcharge on all guns and ammo. In other words, the 10% tax extra plus the regular 7%, so 17% total, but the 10% of that went to fund anti-gun groups. It was funny. I testified in the hearing. It was the tax assessors and all them, the financial people in the State House that were hearing this. And they were just like, even the ones I think that were for gun control, they couldn't even understand. Why the hell you got to what would that benefit anything? It doesn't make it dramatically got blown out of the water. The gun control advocates, they look like dumbasses on the microphone to try to push this bill. And the tax assessors were like, a lot of them got up and shook my hand because I came out with the pure, cold hard facts. And they love my way of presenting information and escalating the rhetoric to their level, and to these gun control advocates. And so, they even shot the thing. They're like, no, I don't think so. That's stupid. We're not going to fund you, give you money, you gun control advocates, of something we're buying to protect our Second Amendment. I don't think so. So that was shot down. But speaking of ISIS, this all ties together. People need to arm up, because if ISIS starts running around here, folks, you need to defend your homeland. Because, the police are going to be tied up. They're not going to be able to defend every end of the city. So you need to arm up, and you need to be prepared to defend yourselves. Because ISIS is going to start attacking police officers, because the FBI and Homeland Security issued bulletin warning of ISIS attack on police in the United States. And that's ICE now, Islamic State. ISIS, same thing. And Curtin Nimmo from Infowars reports this. Breitbart, Texas has received a leaked internal bulletin warning that ISIS will attack law enforcement in the United States. And that led up to... I didn't print that article out, but a police officer was attacked. Two police officers, or there was 2 or 4, whatever. Several police officers were attacked early yesterday by a man with an axe. And they think it's ISIS related. He asked them if we could take a picture of them. I guess he was standing there, and all of a sudden he wheeled at him with an axe, and cops ended up gunning him down. But he struck one of the cops in the back of the head and the other one in the arm. Didn't kill him, but severely injured him. So I mean, could this all be related? Because right away, the FBI and Homeland Security before that issued this bulletin to warn an attack from ISIS. So we're seeing this happen, folks, right here in America. And the reason why ISIS ain't flooding the streets right now, because, and this goes to you gun control advocates, because they know hundreds of millions of Americans have guns. They know that. The ISIS knows that. That's why they're not going. Because if you gun control advocates got your way years ago, stripped all of us of our firearms, ISIS would be reigning the streets, ruling the streets, killing us all. But they know that we got guns, and we know how to use them. We will use them if we have to. And I'm telling you, you scum in ISIS, too. You like to go around killing innocent people. And I know some of the stuff was staged. With CNN and all that staged a lot of these beheadings and all that thing with the Ebola crisis. But you know what? They are real. They are doing us. But you know what? Come to America, scumbags, and try killing us. Come to me and try to pass your Sharia law. You know, we'll shove it right up your ass and send you back to Muhammad. And your dumb moon fake god Allah. So don't go here and try to infringe on our rights. You know, we're Christians, we love our God, and I'm not all of us Christians, whatever. And there are some good American Muslims, but you know what? You people are a disgrace to the whole Muslim religion in the first place. So, come try to pull that crap here, and we know how to use our weapons very well. So we outnumber you people too. We got hundreds of millions of Americans with hundreds of millions of guns. You couldn't have enough firepower to come take over America. You don't. So your efforts are futile. Yeah, period. Plain and simple. But anyway, we do got to end the show here. We're out of time, and it's just like so much stuff. We need to have more time. Again, ISIS, leave our cops alone, leave our people alone, because you will get what you deserve. Plain and simple. And we're not afraid of you. Trust me, we are not afraid of you, because I got a gun, everybody else has got guns, and we know how to use them. And that's not even counting the people who don't. Who are not registered that do own guns. So, I got a great video on my YouTube, ISIS, The Untold Truth Exposed, The Rise of Babylon, and it's got 280,000 hits already, whatever it is. But folks, you need to check that out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Truth Radio Show, and then go to our channel, our website, truthradioshow.com, for all our social networks. But we're about out of time, so anyway, thank you for tuning in to the Truth Radio Show on Alternate Current Radio. We'll see you next week, God willing. God bless.